spent in a miserable way.
U.S. news: the first in over a century. Only one state has a split legislature. The New York Times. Since 4 days after, to the shock of nearly everyone, Mr. Cattrall flipped a Republican-held seat in the suburbs of the Twin Cities, and this month, he became one of nearly 1,700 candidates who took the seat of an incumbent in state legislatures across the nation. The vast majority of the newcomers are Democrats, and as legislatures started new sessions this month, they were already shifting the debate in a number of states to liberal pledges made during their campaigns, including lowering health care costs, promoting gun control, and expanding access to college. Republicans continue to hold majorities in most of the nation's state capitals, as they have in recent years, but Democrats now control 6 new legislative chambers, including the Minnesota House of Representatives. Along the way, even in an era of single-party dominance in state legislatures, it is a stunning notion. It is the first time in more than a century that only one state has split control of its legislative chambers, and is one more indication of the depth of the nation's bifurcated political sensibilities. Minnesota may be the only place where lawmakers like Mr. Cattrall will be forced in the coming months to hash through both liberal and conservative political proposals to reach compromises. The state has become Minnesota is a results-oriented place, so the advantage will go to the party that is the opposite of Washington, D.C., said Pat Garofalo, a Republican and a representative in the state house. But if the Democrats, to be sure, a mix of governors including Democrats elected in Kansas, Michigan and Wisconsin, where Republicans control state legislatures, you will add checks on some of the state capitals otherwise controlled by single parties? At least 12, but in the first weeks of the year's new lawmaking session, some legislatures were already racing toward opposite visions, as those controlled solely by Democrats were busy pushing liberal measures and those ruled by Republicans were advocating conservative agendas. In the opening days, Democrats who have vaulted to positions of full control in their legislatures Colorado, New Hampshire and New York, achieved parity Minnesota, or solidified their power California, Nevada and New Mexico, among others have wasted little time. In New Hampshire, one of 18 state legislatures controlled by Democrats after both of its legislative chambers flipped in 2018, lawmakers have already in the House chamber over the objections of Republicans, and have voted to require every lawmaker to undergo sexual harassment awareness training. Up next, in New York, where Democrats won full control of the legislature, lawmakers have approved access to state financial aid and scholarships and another that expands protections for the state's abortion laws. In Colorado, where Democrats took the and already controlled the House, lawmakers have introduced bills to expand access to affordable health care, allow the importation of prescription drugs from Canada, and give 100 teachers as much as $5,000 a year each to help pay off college loans. And Democrats who now control the state, they are seeking several measures that had been blocked or slowed by Paul Lepage, the former Republican governor. Among them are in the 31 states that have Republican legislative control, as well as Nebraska, whose single-chamber legislature is officially nonpartisan but leans conservative. Lawmakers were also pressing their advantage. In Ohio, the legislature is poised to once a fetus heartbeat is detected, which could be as early as 6 weeks into a pregnancy. In Missouri, we are in a time when there is a lot of division in our politics, and the divisions are along social, economic and geographic lines, said William T. Pound, executive director of a group that serves members of legislatures. States in 2018 elected a historically diverse group of candidates, with more women than ever before seated in state legislatures, about 28% of the total. Women now in Nevada. In all, 27% of members of state legislatures, lower chambers and 32% of upper chambers defeated incumbents to win seats in November, according to an analysis by a non-profit organization that provides policy guidance to government. In Minnesota, the only state with a divided legislature. The risk to each side is clear. If either party presses bills that stray too far from the center, they could fail to pass their agenda. But if lawmakers, Democrats, however, say they intend to be assertive, we need to demonstrate that we are ready to take action to improve people's lives and not be overly cautious, said Representative Ryan Winkler, the Democratic House Majority Leader. Among the Democrats' plans were measures for paid family leave, a public option health care plan, more early childhood education and gun control limits requiring background checks and red flag laws to temporarily take guns away in some cases. Republicans, Mr. Winkler said, that would provoke more anger, particularly among female voters in the suburbs, where Democrats split seats. There is now a but Mr. Garofalo, the Republican House member, said backlash against President Trump had caused the defections in the suburbs, and warned that a liberal agenda would send suburban women fleeing back to Republicans. I don't think the Democrats will go what I would call the Bernie Sanders route, or it will be easier for us to take back the majority, he said. Mr. Catrell, the new Democratic State House member, sounded more concerned with delivering on promises he had made as he told his own health care story along the campaign trail in the suburbs around the Twin Cities, where many of the people he talked to said they had voted Republican in the past. A 10-day stay, he has called for an expansion to the state's health care program for the poor, lower drug costs and more transparency in prescription drug prices. He sounded hopeful. In some districts, people are feeling a sense of disarray and disorder, and they want to return politics to the people and return to civility, he said. I believe there can.
Raindrop, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.